This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back on the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
And welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. Bill Oram, sports columnist of the Oregonian, speaking at the moment, joined by Brenna Greene from Coin 6. Brenna, I'm going to just start this right off the bat. When we did our college football podcast preview edition 6 weeks ago, you and I both agreed that we thought Oregon would beat Ohio State on October 12th in Eugene and lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Here we are. It is the week of October 12th. Ohio State is making its final preparations for its trip to Eugene. The truck is probably already on its way from Columbus. Do you stand by the belief that Oregon will win on Saturday, and then, regardless of what happens in December, do you still like the Ducks in this long-anticipated matchup against the Buckeyes?
I think Ohio State wins this game. Personally, I just haven't seen enough from Oregon to make me think that they've made the leaps and bounds that they need to make to keep up with this Ohio State team from the beginning of the year. Even though they beat Michigan State, there were still issues that if those happened against Ohio State, and they will because Ohio State is better, Oregon couldn't cover themselves couldn't cover up those mistakes against an Ohio State. It would be completely detrimental to the game plan. So, I personally do not believe they're going to win on Saturday. I hope I'm proved wrong. I would love to be proved wrong. I would love to eat crow. But yeah, I'm just not feeling as confident in this team as I thought I would be at this point in the season. Now, to be fair, it's not like Ohio State has played like a juggernaut of a schedule coming into this thing. You play Iowa last week. They've got a good defense, but we know that offensively they are incapable. Okay? So, maybe Ohio State has looked better than what they actually are, because they haven't played a ton of really high level competition coming into this. But then again, if you look at Oregon's schedule, Boise State proves to be a tougher team than I think people thought when they came in. I think that they have really shown that they are a really, really solid squad this year. So that, last second win doesn't look as bad as what it did at the time. But, still, I don't know. I wish I felt more confident in this Ducks team, but I've still got question marks. What about you?
I agree with everything you said, other than I think, Ohio State has been, extremely impressive, and
yes,
the best defense in the country. Will Howard's been terrific there. I like what Chip Kelly's brought to the offense. They've been really, really fun to watch as well. I also would take Ohio State in this game, as for a lot of the reasons that you said. Oregon did not kind of assert itself from the start of the season in the way we expected. The fact that you had some issues, even in the wins against UCLA and Michigan State, which end up looking pretty good by the time they're over. Those are games that against two of the worst teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And they were closer in the first half than they probably should have been. Dillon Gabriel was making unforgivable mistakes, frankly, interceptions in the red zone. You cannot do against a team like Ohio State, where you can't leave points on the field or give points away to a team like Ohio State. And so that to me is the biggest question. I talked to James Crepea about this, our Oregon Ducks beat writer, on the Ducks Confidential podcast at length yesterday. I think there's a lot of reason to be patient with Dillon Gabriel and wait and see, and give him the benefit of the doubt that he can avoid those kinds of mistakes and learn from kind of what he was doing in those situations against the Bruins and the Spartans. That said, it's a quick turnaround to get to the Buckeyes, to get to a much better team. I believe that the coaches know exactly what he's doing wrong. I believe he knows exactly what he's doing wrong. But, you're in those high pressure situations, quick decision type moments, things happen. And Dillon Gabriel has shown that he is, capable of making the wrong read in those situations. So I'm fascinated to see what happens with him. Like I said, I think the Buckeyes have been far more impressive. What I think is interesting, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, this was always going to be a big game. And it was a big game, obviously, as soon as it was scheduled. And, as soon as Oregon went to the Big Ten, hey, like getting Ohio State in Autzen was, going to be a huge deal whenever it happened. And here it is in the first year in the Big Ten. But it took a lot that had to happen around the college football landscape for this to be the top 3 matchup that we all thought it was going to be coming into the year. And, you and I both have an AP vote. I ranked Oregon 4th. I put Georgia back at 3. So I was a little surprised that Oregon had
that was shocking to me too.
Moved up to 3 nationally. I didn't have them at 3. It doesn't sound like you did either. I didn't check the ballots this week.
I did my ballot under serious sleep duress. Okay. So including accidentally deleting the whole thing seconds before I was about to submit. So, I don't totally remember, but I do know that one Kansas State fan told me that they hoped I misplaced my keys and it caused me to be late to something this week. So I can look at my ballot because they quote tweeted the compilation graphic of all the AP polls. So there you go. There were some other choice words in there that we aren't going to repeat on this podcast. But I'm sitting here trying to find my lovely.
You had Oregon 5th. I had Oregon
5th. Yeah.
You had Penn State 4th.
Yeah. I really, either one of those are interchangeable. I'm not sold on either of those teams. So there you go.
Right. Okay. So, but the point is, I mean, Oregon, was now I can't remember 8-9 after the Idaho game. I think dipped even further after the Boise State game, and then everybody in front of them starts losing. The Missouri struggled, Tennessee lost, Alabama loses to Vandy. Miami almost lost. I mean, I think Miami probably jumps the Ducks with a more convincing win at Cal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, but I mean, again, a whole lot of stuff had to happen for Oregon to be the number 3 team in the country right now. And so, I mean, it ends up setting up this mammoth showdown, at least on paper, that we sort of all anticipated coming into the season. And I, not to beat a dead horse on promoting this piece I wrote back in August, but there have only been 6 top 10 matchups in the history of Autzen Stadium. And a lot of them, were, USC, Stanford. There was an ASU game, Michigan State in 2014, but there's never been a top 5 matchup, and there's never been, obviously, never been a top 3 matchup. So, in every way that you can sort of slice it and dice it, this is, if this was Purdue ranked number 2, it would be the biggest game in the history of Autzen Stadium. But then you add in that it is Ohio State in the first year of the Big Ten. There's going to be playoff implications. There's Big Ten championship game implications. It's brands. It's about validation for Oregon making the move to the Big Ten. Dan Lanning and everything he has sold. You've got Chip Kelly on the other side. It is a juicy matchup. It's no surprise, obviously, the College Game Day is going to start today in Eugene on Saturday. I think that you probably could have you probably could have locked that one in last December.
Yeah.
But there is a real buzz around this game. I mean, I have friends in Portland who are Ohio State fans or who are from Ohio who don't make a habit of going to college football games, who are spending, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to go to this game and to stay in Eugene, getting a hotel for like $800 for one night in Eugene. This is a once in a lifetime type of event, and maybe it is less of a once in a lifetime thing now that Oregon's in the Big Ten, and you're going to periodically see these kinds of matchups. There's going to be a lot of these there's going to be, annually or every couple of years, these massive games at Autzen with a lot of demand. But this is, in a lot of ways, a first in a lifetime event. And for longtime Duck fans who have been along for the ride from the Rich Brooks era, the 94 Rose Bowl team, through, Mike Bellotti and Joey Harrington, and have been part of kind of this build of Oregon football. This feels like not the culmination, because we're obviously only in week 6 of this season, but this is sort of the moment of potential validation of all of that. And if Oregon wins, that is enormous.
Yes.
Could still lose at Purdue next week, but it's enormous.
I don't see that happening.
Hey, if you go back to our college football preview episode, I said trap game at Purdue, trap game in West Lafayette. Not enough of a trap game for me to get on an airplane and go back to Indiana for the second time this year, but trap game nonetheless.
I don't think that's a trap game at this point in the season.
Ducks have really struggled with teams from states that start with the letter I.
Okay. That's it. That's the common thread. I like that. Just keep on going down that road. I think Purdue has shown us who they are, to say the least. And some of us have gotten an up close and personal look at what they are, which isn't good. Yeah, I mean it's a huge deal. For example, like I told myself, I went down. I'm a sucker for College Game Day. I went down for College Game Day 2 years ago against UCLA. And I said, okay, Brenna, you've done it. You went to College Game Day at Oregon, because my parents would never take me when I was younger because it was too early. And, I was up here. And so I said, okay, like, you're going to do it. You're going to go down. And then, after I did it, I was like, all right, I'm glad I did it. I don't need to do it again. What am I doing? I'm going down, because I'm like, this is a College Game Day that I want to be at. This is a day that I want to experience fully. And so I'm going to do it. But it's and I think that's a bigger sign of what this game is, because, if it weren't a top 5 matchup, I think I would be like, okay, Brenna, you got to pass on it. You got to pass. You got to let it go. But here I am, and I'm going. So I think that's a good sign of what this contest is for really college football in general. So you're right about everything going crazy. By the way, I just want to say, when it comes to, there's a lot of questions about Oregon dropping in the polls to begin the year. And, what everyone around that program said is it takes care of itself. Well, that's definitely proven true, because all of a sudden they're back up to where they were. So...
Well, and what I would also say is, even with those ugly losses it felt like it, those ugly wins against, particularly the Idaho game, if they had thumped Idaho and then, played kind of what was a sort of instant classic against Boise State, maybe they dip a spot or something like that. But Boise State has a lot of respect, and people understand, that team comes ready to play. And Ashton Jeanty obviously is, an All-American, Heisman frontrunner at this point. But this game was always going to give them the opportunity to, you want to be the number 1 team in the country, beat Ohio State. You want to, you go win these games that are in the Big Ten. This will take care of itself. You could be the number 25 team in the country. It does not matter in week 2, week 3. And, it's fun. It certainly, it gives us kind of guideposts for the season and kind of how we talk about these teams and understanding who these teams are and how we should be looking at them. But it doesn't change anything internally. And I understand why coaches always say that they don't listen to the outside noise, or they don't worry about things like rankings. obviously you're aware of them, but if you can actually block that out, if that's even humanly possible, of course that's the right thing to do, because it's not tangible. It's not real. It's not real until the actual playoff arrives. Now, if you're 2-7, you can't sit there and say, oh, we don't care about the critics. Like, the critics are pointing out that you suck, which is true. But right now, Oregon's in a great spot. I mean, Oregon has gotten better, I think, every week, with the exception of, some of Dillon Gabriel's decision-making. But they've gotten stronger up front. The defense has gotten better and better and better. You're seeing a stronger identity in the backfield. Jordan James has gotten just absolutely dominant. I think Dillon Gabriel is getting more comfortable with his different receivers. Tez is obviously the go-to option. I love the things they've opened up for Terrence Ferguson the last couple of weeks. It does feel like Oregon has kind of hit its stride for what this team is. Is that good enough to beat Ohio State? I don't think we've seen enough to say that yet. But I think we are seeing this team like kind of ascend week to week. And so I think there's certainly a chance for an all-time great performance on Saturday, but it's going to take everybody playing at the top of their game, and especially the quarterback.
Yeah, which, even though Dillon had obviously his issues against Michigan State, and I'll just be full disclosure here, it's not like I really got to watch a lot of that game, considering I was standing on a high school football sideline the whole time. Multiple high school football sidelines the whole time. So, I'm coming to this from a overall broader view. I know that he made unforgivable mistakes in terms of those interceptions in the red zone, but overall, I do feel like he's been very consistent for Oregon this year. That was just an inconsistent. That was just not a normal game. But, Dan Lanning said afterwards, he's like, we're all going to have those moments. Like, it's going to happen at some point during the year,
I feel comfortable saying I'm never going to throw an interception in the red zone on national television for a top 5 college football program. So I'm not sure we're all going to have those moments.
Okay. So, yeah, anyways, I mean, it stinks, but do I think that he's going to ultimately be okay? Yes. Do I think that he's probably been thinking about it like crazy and is not going to be making those mistakes again? Yes. But, we'll see. Did you happen to watch Dan Lanning's press conference last night?
I actually haven't had a chance yet. I meant to before we hopped on here, but I haven't had a chance.
Okay, well, I can tell you this. You might not need to waste 10 minutes of your life and watch it. Because boy, were we in full-on coach speak mode. I mean, holy bananas. Like, this was, I think you and I can both agree the majority of Dan Lanning's press conferences are, he's gotten more and more coach speak. Like, this year is a new level of coach speak for Dan Lanning in his press conferences.
Yeah.
But generally, this was like, yeah, I can tell it's Ohio State week because you are saying absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just, every single question was, he wouldn't get specific on anything. Like, yeah, it was, I could tell, the press conference was, oh, this is Ohio State week. We had no, well, what has Colorado done in our conference, quips. That was,
yeah,
that was non-existent. So, I thought that was interesting last night. I was like, man, this is even more bland than what I'm used to, which they're pretty bland.
Well, and what a departure that is from, the Ducks message from, the off season with Mighty Different and the inflatable duck and, kind of the marketing side of it all, which included the, I think we talked about it on here, which was the commercial or the video they did on social, which had the duck coming out onto a freshly, with scissors cut football field, and the duck coming out on his motorcycle and carving the O into the middle of it and said, love your traditions. We'll try our best to honor them. The Ducks the Ducks have very much leaned into being the new kid on the block from a marketing standpoint. Here's the chance to kind of prove it on the football field. And I think Dan Lanning's smart enough not to poke the bear in this situation in a game week, in a game that they may not win, by the way. Because what have they done to impact this conference? I can't remember anything. Quote, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm thinking about slipping that one in this week with questions about Oregon. I'm thinking about slipping that in about the Ducks because it hasn't happened yet. Yep. It will. Inevitably over time, the Ducks are going to make a very big impact in the Big Ten. But right now, they are still, the freshman members of this conference. And, but sometimes the freshman makes the varsity, and that can happen on Saturday, if I can extend this metaphor way beyond its logical conclusion.
What do you think? What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like on Saturday?
I think it's going to be pretty tepid. I think people are going to be sitting on their hands. I think it's going to be kind of funereal, even. I think fans are going to be late getting into the stadium. They're going to leave early. Some of them might go out for beers at halftime and not even come back in. Maybe half full. Yeah, I don't expect much atmosphere-wise.
Yeah, definitely not. It's going to be super boring.
It's interesting because Autzen always is a great atmosphere anyway. Fans show up for the spring game in a way that makes it a great atmosphere. The Idaho game, great atmosphere. Boise State, sold out, terrific atmosphere. You do sort of wonder how much better it can get. Like we've seen, whether it's Oregon State games or UCLA was ranked number 9 in the country 2 years ago. SC was in last year, and like that place was rocking for to beat the pants off of USC in the last year of the pack. That said, I expect Autzen to basically sort of lift off its footings and sort of just float 6 inches off the ground. I think that the reverberations of the noise and the cheering is just going to lift the entire thing up off the ground 6 inches. I don't know. I'm interested to see it, and I hope I get a chance to be kind of among the crowd when it's you'll be down on the field for most of it, right? But
I'll probably be up in the press box. The rules of the land down there are a little bit stricter. So
okay, so we'll go down at the 8-minute mark, 6-minute mark, whatever it is of the fourth quarter. And, certainly, might take some time just to go around the concourse and into the stands during the game just to feel it. But I hope we have a close game, coming down to the last possession or two so that when we're down on the field, we can sort of feel that and kind of soak up that atmosphere because it's going to be a lot of fun. I think even more so than the actual stadium, I think the tailgates and the parking lot are going to be electric. I have a friend. Again, this is my same Ohio State friend who's going down, who hasn't been to Autzen before, doesn't know Eugene well, and he's like, "Well, maybe I'll go to a sports bar before the game." And I'm like, "Absolutely not. The only thing you want to do is take a cooler of however many beers you think you need to drink, take a couple sandwiches, and just go find your people. Go walk around and find your people, soak it in, because that is going to be an all-time atmosphere in the parking lot." I hope people make it into the stadium, but I'm excited to see kind of what that looks like, because the number of people who are going to be there early, the number of people who are going to be there who aren't even going to make it into the game, just want to be part of it, is going to be huge. So I'm going to get down there earlier than usual. Obviously you're going to get there earlier than usual for game day. You could not pay me enough to go to college game day again. I admire that you are excited about it and want to go. You could pay me enough. I want to be very clear. If anyone's listening to this and wants to see me at college game day or hear my reactions, I will send you my Venmo. You can definitely pay me enough to go. But I don't know. I've done it. I've definitely done it. And it's interesting. It's a sight to be seen. But rolling into Rice Eccles Stadium at 4:30 in the morning in 2011 was enough for me.
Yeah, I also do think that I have this unrealistic expectation of what game day should be like, because the first game day I ever went to was at Wazoo in 2018 against Oregon. And that was an incredible morning, just so amazing. That place was unhinged. It was, very Cal-like. And so therefore I have this idea of what game day should look like. Yeah. And maybe I'm not maybe it's not as realistic as what it should be in my brain.
It'll be great.
And I will say, Like, Oregon didn't really live up to that Wazoo expectation against UCLA, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be like that this time around, especially coming off the heels of the Cal one, because I think Oregon is going to kind of want to show out because Cal just did. So.
What would be a good a sign for College Game Day? If you're an Oregon fan going to College Game Day, what would your sign say? What would Brenna
I'm not
Greene's
clever like that.
Brenna Greene and Yellow's sign say?
Oh gosh, man, I have no idea.
Good podcasts prep for these things, and I just throw them at you spontaneously, which is not fair.
Yeah.
My nephew is going, and so I was trying to I was trying to give him a few. I didn't do very well. I did tell him Pat Quackafee. I liked Quackafee.
That's funny.
Like take your shirt off, Pat Quackafee. I don't need it, you know. The other one was I think you could do something cool with. Well, I don't know. I want my nephew to do these. I don't want everybody else to do them, but whatever. If you're listening to this and you actually want to take the idea for the sign that I give on this podcast and make it a sign that goes to game day, send me the picture, because I will run with that for a lifetime. So I don't care if I'm giving this idea to more than one person. Okay, here's my other one.
Oh boy.
Night is greater than day, right? The greater than sign.
Yeah.
Night. And then give me Phil's picture next to night and Ryan Day's picture next to day. Night better than day. Night and day.
Okay. All right.
That might be the best one I've got so far, but I'm going to keep thinking on it.
Yeah. Well, now you've sparked my thought process, but it's too. I can't think of. My brain is not on that wavelength right now. But
the other one I thought of, but I'm not entirely sure how I would do it, but it would be something along the lines of like the beaver emoji, and then the nut emoji, and then the handshake emoji. And then below it would say OSUs that are worse than ducks emoji. That'd be a good sign. Because a Buckeye is a nut. So like use the acorn emoji to sort of convey the Buckeye nut.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to follow you there, but it's not totally a straight line, but okay, all right.
OSU.
I will say we got
Oregon State and Ohio State are OSUs.
I get that.
The handshake emoji, which is a thing.
Yes.
It happens on the internet.
Yes, I did that on Saturday.
And below that, you would say OSUs that are less than the duck.
Okay.
Again, this would just be if I was making a sign to be pro-Oregon, not to say that I actually believe that to all the people who email me saying I hate Oregon or Oregon State. I get both, actually, but that's fine.
Well, that's how you know you're doing a good job. Yeah, I will say we got an email from our station in Columbus, and the subject line was OSU at Oregon. And I was like, what? They already played. I was so thrown off by that. I was like, wait, what? I was like half asleep when I saw it first, and I was like, ugh. And then I finally understood. I was like, oh, you mean Ohio State. Okay, got it. Yeah. That's just another byproduct of realignment. My brain doesn't compute that. Like, yeah. So there you go. Do we have anything else to talk about this week?
Well, I'm still on this. I'm still on Oregon and Ohio State because I do think that there is something, like, I think it does lead to some questions kind of about the future at Oregon. You know, what games in the future will carry this kind of magnitude? You know, is it when Michigan comes and Michigan rebounds? What does the future of the stadium at Autzen look like? I mean, we've heard about, renovations, and expansion. What kind of difference is that going to make for when you see these higher marquee games coming? And then also, the playoff. I mean, what does this particular game mean for the college football playoff in a 12-team playoff when, theoretically a little bit less, right? Because either team can still make the postseason out of this. That said, I mean, if Oregon wins, I think you would go ahead and pencil them in to the 12-team playoff. There's still room for a letdown, right? Yeah. There's still room for you lose at Michigan, you lose at home to Illinois, you falter in the Big Ten title game against somebody like Indiana, but like you're getting in. If you beat Ohio State, you're probably getting in, even if certainly with one loss down the stretch. maybe with 2 if you have the Ohio State win, depending on who those losses are to. So it's interesting that this game is as big as it is, but doesn't have the implications it necessarily would seem to have or would have had in past years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I think we're all trying to kind of figure out what this now looks like in the 12-team era. How it's a big deal, but how much do you want to really, invest into it, sort of thing. I kind of wish they would have done 8, not 12, but I know why they did 12. Money. So I get it, but yeah, I mean, it is now absolutely one of those things where you lose this game, and as long as you keep it close, it is not the end of the world. And even if you don't keep it close, it might not be the end of the world.
Right.
Which is weird. Not normal for college football, which is kind of like do or die every Saturday. It feels a little bit more like the NFL, not quite. But yeah, that's it's definitely a change that I don't think I've really calibrated myself to yet. It's going to take a year for me to really be able to process okay, all these games are not one and done sort of situations, because that's all it's been my entire life. So that's how you would look at these things. But yeah, you're right in the fact that I don't think it's not the end all be all, as long as it is not a Texas A&M throttling Mizzou sort of situation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but again, even then, if you run the table the rest of the way and beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, you're in.
Yep.
So it's it does keep the intrigue going much later into the season, because if Oregon were to lose to Ohio State and then check out against Illinois, in a 14 playoff, you can write them off completely.
Mm-hmm.
This is hello Holiday Bowl, in the old structure of Pac-12, hello Alamo Bowl. But now you're in a position where, you can keep building and keep getting better and still be, in the hunt for a national championship, which, has not been the case previously. I love a playoff. I love an expanded playoff. I love the FCS model of having 8 byes and, having a 2014 playoff. I love it. I love that my Montana Grizzlies can still be a playoff team after losing at North Dakota and at home to Weber State on Saturday. Really, Bobby Houck? Weber State?
That was quite a score.
Well, I was watching it in the press box before kickoff at Research Stadium for Oregon State, and I was there. And
Colorado State.
Great game that was. And it became a shootout down the stretch, not the Colorado State Oregon State game, which also did, but the Montana Weber State game, which was extremely frustrating.
Defense optional.
Yeah, no
apparently.
Note on the Beavers, by the way, I do want to touch on this. They go to Nevada this week. They play a Nevada team that just lost to San Jose State. The Beavers are favored. Let me pull up the line on that. Double-digit favorites. They're not double-digit favorites. Why? They're 4-point favorites. They should be a double-digit favorite. The Beavers are 4-1. I'm going to go ahead and mark them at 5-1 for this weekend, which is often the kiss of death. But they have no business losing to this Nevada team. Schedule gets a lot tougher for the Beavs after this weekend, because that's when you start having UNLV, Cal, Washington State, Boise State down the stretch. You also have San Jose State and Air Force in there. Those are both at home. But I spent some time considering the question of really how good this Oregon State team is, because at 4-1, you would start thinking, hey, this is a pretty darn good team. There's a lot of winnable games left on the schedule. And I think I get myself in trouble with this a little bit, because I don't think this team is that good. I think it's solid. I think it's a solid team, and it's been beating teams that are not as solid. It's been beating teams that, by really any measure, have been worse than them. The Beavers have won every game they've been favored in. They lost the one that they were an underdog in, which was obviously Oregon. Does it matter? The Beavers are in a really tough spot. They're in a currently conference list for these next 2 seasons. The conference is taking shape. We know what it's going to look like in 2 years. But right now, there's no structure of a conference. There's no path to a conference championship or anything like that. It's is it just Is it good enough? I mean, there's no alternative here, but like, I guess if you're a fan of Oregon State, how do you watch this season and how do you get excited for this season when, there's a clear path to maybe 7 wins? You beat Nevada, San Jose State, and Air Force. Those are the three games that you really should win remaining on your schedule. You're 7-5 with a bowl game. That's great. You drop one of those, you're 6-6 with a bowl game. You're still probably pretty, that's okay. You beat Cal. Now all of a sudden you're an 8-win team. You beat Washington State at home, which is certainly possible. But I think I've struggled with how to really wrap my arms around what this Oregon State season is. And there aren't like the real measuring. I mean, obviously you go to Boise State at the end of the year. That's a real measuring stick game, I suppose. But is it good enough if you're a Beaver fan to rack up 7 wins and be 7-5 when basically the entire college football world has left you behind and you're kind of spending the last year and like the future year kind of picking yourself up off the mat? Like, is that an enjoyable experience?
I think that even though we all know bowl games are the stupidest, are one of the stupidest constructs that are still around, to be honest with you. I don't really understand why they exist in today's day of college football. But they do. They're here. They exist. And people make money off of them, so they won't be going anywhere, even though they don't make any sense. Okay. Mini rant over.
Agree with all that.
Yeah. I still, think that making a bowl game is an accomplishment for this team after all of the loss of the last year, and just being able to say, hey, we still were good enough to at least get to 500 on our season. So I do find that to be something that resonates with me as a positive marker for this team after everything they've been through, because I think that, to be completely frank, the goal this year is to make a bowl game. And anything more than that is incredible, considering the amount of loss that they had. And I mean, by the way, their players are succeeding across the country. Man, have I heard the name Mascarenas Arnold more than I ever imagined I would in my entire life. So, there's
for the 2-loss USC Trojans.
Yes. So, they obviously lost a lot of talent. So I do think that it is a accomplishment for this team to make a bowl game, and anything beyond that is great. You're right that their schedule becomes significantly more difficult down the road. But, I think you just have to, I think with what's going on with OSU right now, you have to take the wins when you have them.
Yeah. What I liked about Saturday's game against Colorado State, if I'm looking at it from a football standpoint, the Beavers should not have been in that situation. They had that game firmly in hand. You're up 21-10 in the fourth quarter. You give up 3 third-and-longs on a drive that, allows Colorado State to go down. By the way, Colorado State was 0 for 5 on third down at that point in the game. And they go down and convert these 3 third-and-longs and end up scoring and taking a late lead, forcing a 2-minute drill of that leads to a field goal to tie the game. I mean, it was all very exciting. But what I liked about it was it was exciting, and I think it was galvanizing for fans to have that kind of game where it was a real kind of collective, seat and edge of your seat experience. Because funny thing happens when you schedule teams that you're a lot better than, Idaho State, San Diego State, Purdue. The games aren't very exciting, and the result isn't very thrilling. And those games were in hand in the fourth quarter, very much so. The Oregon game was over by the middle of the third quarter. So it wasn't, it was great. They were great days in the sun, great day to go drink a beer and tailgate, but there wasn't an exciting
collective effort.
Right. And so even though they were in a position they shouldn't have been in against Colorado State, it was fun. And I think that if you were an Oregon State fan, you were able just to be excited about what was happening, and the things that probably made you a fan in the first place of, are we going to pull this out sort of thing actually was unfolding. And there will be, I think, more of that. As the games get tougher, the games are going to be more exciting. And, maybe that means you lose a close one to UNLV, or you lose a close one, God help them, at Nevada, which has happened before. This is not a good Nevada team.
No.
But, or you rise to the occasion against Cal. I mean, that's how you build excitement for your fan base is, winning games where, people don't expect you to. I think that's kind of what has been missing from the Oregon State season so far. It was exciting to be at Reser, and that was cool. So I was happy for that. I was happy for the fans to have that, and to, do you rush the field when you almost lose as a double-digit underdog to double-digit favorite, not called an overdog, a double-digit favorite to Colorado State? Like, not generally, but I mean, that was catharsis in a lot of ways, I think. And it was, I think it was nice to see for the Beavers, and I'm excited to see kind of what this season leads to, because I think you're right. Like, the structure that exists, reaching a bowl game is the reward for this season. And you are trying not to lose the momentum of what Jonathan Smith built, and you are trying to, give your first year head coach, something to sort of hang his hat on as he goes out and tries to rebuild this program and to sell recruits on the future of the program. So if you can say, hey, we won 8 games last year and we went to the LA Bowl, we went to, you can go, if you go to Shreveport to the Independence Bowl, you can go recruit Louisiana and say, we were in a bowl game, 2 hours from your house, and Texas. So I think it's only positive. People who are like me and are like, what do you do when it's not USC coming in 3 weeks, or when it's, not, the path to a Pac-12 championship? That has been hard to sort of figure out how to sort of conceptualize what this season is. And I think that's why Saturday was validating, because it was like, oh, this is still college football. The game inside the lines still matters and can be fun and can, like, really resonate.
I just would like to say, who picked Colorado State as their trap game to start the season? Didn't quite happen, but I felt pretty smart standing on the sideline.
I don't remember this. I don't remember our picks about the Beavers season. What was my trap game? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Did I have a trap game?
We had to pick a trap game.
I think I said Air Force.
You might have. Yeah, I think you did say Air Force.
I was close. I was within like 2 hours. 2 hours by the highway. 2.5 hours.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? It still could be the trap game. I mean, technically, Oregon State did win. They beat Colorado State, but I was sitting there and I was like, all right, I feel a little bit better about this pick than I did about 6 minutes ago.
Oh, how about UNLV falling off of its pedestal and out of the top 25? Maybe not that unpredictable after losing its quarterback, but I mean, UNLV had been looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's that's just what that's the Saturday that was in college football. So I guess that's just everyone falling off their pedestal this past Saturday.
Yeah, it was incredible trying to go through and rank the top 25, Brenna. I mean, I'm sure you had the same experience as me, but like, especially once you got after like 9, like there were certain pieces of it where it's like this naturally falls into place.
Yeah.
But then you start getting into these 1-loss teams that have all beaten each other, and like, it was an interesting experience. Like, are we at the point now where we start forgiving Notre Dame for the Northern Illinois loss and like let Notre Dame back into the top 10? Like, it was a really tricky, really tricky experience. Let's see, Notre Dame. There was one person who had Notre Dame as high as 7, but anyway, that's
pretty sure I had them 11.
I think I did too.
I think I kept them at 11.
I had them at 11 as well.
Look at you.
Look at us.
Look at us.
If speaking of rankings, is the winner of Ohio State, Oregon, the number 1 team in the country come Sunday morning?
I think so. I think you're right.
Texas plays Oklahoma on Saturday, so Texas, that's a ranked Oklahoma team, not a great OU team by its own standard, but I mean that's not going to be a slouch of a win by the Longhorns. But Ohio State over Oregon on the road, win of the year. Oregon over Ohio State, win of the year. That is the most validating win. I don't really see an argument that the winner of that game isn't the number 1 team, even though if I'm Texas, I'm sitting there saying, hey, what did we do wrong?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, well, we'll see whether or not that's what ends up happening. And I suspect, Brenna, History tells me that we'll be back to talk about it on the Oregonian Sports podcast. Will you join me?
Allegedly, yes. I just remembered the one other thing I wanted to talk about.
I was about to sign off. Okay, fine.
I know.
This is Oregonian Sports Podcast Epilogue. Go ahead. Let's hit it.
I just wanted to say, like, gosh dang it, why are the Blazers the way that they are?
Oh, I know.
Like, I am so sick of getting the injury update from the Blazers. I'm done. I'm over it. Like, we literally got we got that roundhouse kick right after the podcast last
Robert
week.
Williams.
Yep.
Robert Williams edition, yep.
And then we got the gut punch on Saturday with Shaedon Sharpe. And neither of these injuries are long-term things, but it's like, it's scary. It's starting to get a little scary.
Well, I mean, in the quest for Cooper flag ping pong balls,
yep,
you know, you take it. But secondary to losing a bunch of games this year, and I would actually say even more important than losing a bunch of games this year, because I think you can do it either way, is really establishing, you know, entrenching the core of this team through the development of Scoot and Shaedon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this needs to be their team. And Donovan Clingan, of course, but, you know, he has a little bit of a longer runway. This is year 3 for Shaedon Sharpe. Year 3 is a huge year of development in terms of a measuring stick of how far along a guy is and where he's actually going to lead. I don't necessarily think he's a third-year All-Star, but he could be a fourth-year All-Star if he grows in the way that he should this season. And for that to be delayed, he's going to miss the first 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season now. Like you said, not the end of the world, but you would like him to have a clean slate and a clean runway to have the kind of season that I think everybody's kind of hoping he's able to have, to give the Blazers that core piece.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Cronin said, I don't really feel like I learned a lot about this team last year. It's me paraphrasing, but you know, he said something to that effect, and like, you can't learn about this team if Shaedon ain't on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just straight up what it is. That is straight up what it is. So, you know, once again, we spend a few weeks in purgatory. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen injury-wise during those few weeks? Because if the Blazers have shown us anything, they're going to get a few more. So, you know, it's just frustrating. It's like, can we just at least get a look at what this could be and have a few weeks of, you know,
right.
Well, there's going to be dings here and there, but I get that. But this is just, I'm just so like, I'm over it. I'm over it. And I understand it's no one's fault. It is no one's fault. But I think that I speak for the fan base when, you know, that doesn't mean that it's not frustrating. And, you know, like, Shaedon's got to be healthy, man. Like, if he, you know, like, him not being available is a huge problem. And I'm not saying that he has that reputation right now. But, you know, a few more injuries is going to do it. And that's not good. That is not good. So, and especially since it's the same injury he had at Summer League 2 years ago.
Shaedon Sharpe hasn't played a game since January 11th. I mean, that's just leave that right there. I mean, he played 32 games last year and hasn't played since January 11th. You know, he needs to be on the floor. He needs to be visible. He needs to be out there. And so wishing him a speedy recovery so we can all see it, so we can, you know, fairly evaluate what the Blazers actually have at this point. I think that was one of the things that made the end of last year really difficult was I think there'd be more excitement about the state of the Blazers, frankly, if people had been able to see Scoot play with Shaedon, you know, and Tumani. And, you know, but I mean, the injuries just took the absolute wind out of the sails of that season, even for what it was. So, you know, staying healthy is going to be, you know, the most important thing, so we can start to see some development and a little bit of a glimpse of the future. So, I mean, hopefully this is the end of it. But like you said, I mean, what would give us confidence that that's the case?
There is no world in which Shaedon and Scoop played more than 20 games together last year. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but I can't imagine it's more than 20, which is crazy and a huge problem. And once again, we're back at square one with that. And I can see that Bill is doing some research right now about what the actual number is, which I'm very curious about.
I'm trying to find it. They played 632 minutes together. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have to come back to this at the start of the next episode. Maybe I'll give myself an assignment to figure out the actual number of games they played together.
Just because I know, Scoot got hurt at the beginning of the season.
With Anthony, they played 13, according to a quick Google here, trying to find of those two together. So the three of them only played 13 together,
which is insane.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah,
man, that's depressing. On that depressing note.
Let's see. So far, we've told you that the Ducks are going to lose, that the Beavers season doesn't matter, and that Shaden Sharp will never be healthy. This has been a really positive. Episode of the Oregonian Sports Podcast. No, I mean, I think that if you've listened to this whole thing, you've seen more nuance and positivity in what we're saying. So
yeah,
we're going to leave it at that. Leave a 5-star review on that note, and tell everybody how much you enjoyed this uplifting episode of podcasting excellence. For Brenna Greene, I'm Bill Oram. We'll be back next week. We're going to have a really good football game to talk about, Brenna. At least I hope so. I don't think it's not going to be a good football game. I'm at least confident this is going to be a good football game.
I'm very, very excited. Very excited. Let's get it.
See you on Saturday.
Sounds good.